we're talking about how we're solving European sports. Yeah, so we talked about the draft. We got that in terms of statistics, and so the scouting of I try not to keep bringing it back to the NFL because it's so universal. I remember when I was actually at a baseball game, I was at a Dodgers game. We managed to pick up tickets on the day, and we ended up getting a seat right behind the umpire.
Oh wow!
And
Yeah.
and it was so I was like, everything in LA is expensive, but for some reason these tickets were like $15 because I think we booked them like an hour before.
Yeah.
What do they call kickoff? First pitch.
First pitch,
Ceremonial.
I guess. Yeah.
First ceremonial. The act of throwing the first pitch.
Yes.
And we got them, and I remember I was sat around, and there was this one. It's like talking about having a guy who knew it. There was this lovely old guy sat in front of us, me and my brother, and he said, he was like, and he obviously heard us talking, and as you can imagine, a Scottish accent travels in the heart of LA. So he was like, "You guys aren't from here. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll try and explain." I was like, "Ah." And then I was looking around me, and there was all these people with stopwatches and clipboards. So I was tapping on the shoulder, and I was like, "Who are all these people?" And he was like, "He works for the San Francisco Giants. He works for the Cubs. He works for the Red Sox. He works for the Yankees." And there was all these guys, and they were stopwatch, like they were timing the pitch and how things like that, and writing notes on everything. And it's like, in terms of the pure analysis of how they break down players, could we see that transcend into rugby? I'm sure there probably is stuff behind the scenes, but down to the level of depth, of this guy turns his head 3 times to the right and looks at third base when he throws a fastball, whereas when he throws a whatever they call like an upriser, for example, just something that's like he looks at second base and occasionally ties his left shoe, or some extremism like that.
Well, I think it's fascinating because when I see a lot of, like, there's been loads of I guess newer analysts on Twitter since I've been doing it, and they're all brilliant. They bring kind of newer skills into it. But sometimes, especially early on when they start, a few of them have like reached out and asked me to look at stuff that they've been doing for clubs and whatnot. And what tends to happen is that you read and you go, that is absolutely fantastic, and you obviously know what you're doing. It's sensational, but you've packed in so much information that I guarantee you that the coach is going to look at that and go, yeah,
I'm not reading that.
I'm not reading that. Yeah, and part of that is that rugby's mindset is quite old, and so you will end up with a lot of coaches who are coaching at very high levels who have no interest in analysis, really. Like, they do it because they tick a box and they have to do it, but they're not looking at scouting reports on every single player at the start of the week, and they're not really even looking at kind of tendencies of the opposition or anything like that. What they might be doing is looking at their own team and using video to point out where they went wrong, or look at the opposition and doing stuff like that, but it's very unlikely that they're doing anything more complicated than that. And what you've got to remember as well is, as much as that doesn't make sense, it does make sense that if you're a player, then someone says to you, okay, when the winger steps off his right foot, he always steps back again. Or, when the winger's in his 22, or the winger's better coming onto the ball than he is going away from it, or he drifts through the backfield, or whatever. You've got to say, well, you've got to identify that, and then you've got to remember it, and then you've got to do something about it. So, if I were a 10 and I was saying, and you see this if you go and watch a game and you stand close to the pitch, or if you watched a game during COVID when there wasn't much, obviously, crowd noise, so you could hear the players, you hear the fly half saying, run a switch, or loop, or miss, or whatever. And the defence all know what's happening, but there's a big difference between knowing what's happening and actually stopping it. So, for example, I wrote an article about the Seawolves and their kicking kind of options for Rugby World today, and they were. I spoke to Alatimu, the fly half, and he was saying that they saw that.
I love watching him play. Sorry, I love watching him play. Sorry,
he's incredible, isn't he?
Bodine Waka, I love you, but I do like watching this.
Yeah, he is absolutely fascinating and very talented. But he was talking about how they identified that Houston dropped players deep quickly when Seattle were attacking in their own 22. And so they found that there was potentially space between the defensive line and the defensive backfield. So you think, okay, well that's great.
Up and
That's
under,
yeah, exactly, and that's kind of fairly immediate analysis that you can actually do something about. But then you've got to remember, well, actually, you've got to see what's ahead of you. You've got to make sure that that's actually happened, because it could be that that's what they always do. But then a winger just got lazy and was like, "Oh, our fullback will deal with that." So he's stuck in the wrong position for you. So you chip it through, and he picks it up and he scores. So you got to make sure that they're doing what you actually think they're doing, and then you've got to be able to make the kick. And even then, it's still a huge element of luck that if the kick's going to hit the ground at all, if that's what you planned, you've got to make sure that, or you just got to hope that the ball doesn't bounce in some stupid way that ends up in the opposition's hand. So I often see that where younger analysts will give so much information, and you just think to them, just go and play 5-star football, and learn everything about the person you're marking, and then immediately as soon as they get the ball, try and remember what it is that they do. And it's just you can't, and so you need to. The key is to send them out there with a small amount of information, and then also repetition. So like if you're the Seawolves and you see that Houston drop back, then just repeat that in training. Set yourself up with lineouts in your own 22, play to the 10, and then the 10 sees the picture that he's going to see on Saturday, and maybe he kicks it. Maybe he kicks it deep. Maybe he passes it. Because obviously there's still loads of ways to skin that particular cat, depending on, even if you know that they drop deep, it doesn't mean you always have to kick it. But then it becomes that chess game, because if you know you can just chip it over, well, what do Houston start doing? Do they start dropping back? And if they start dropping back, do you keep kicking because you're now in your own 22 and there's a higher risk that you're going to give the ball away? So it becomes this game of chess where really at that point it's out of your hands. You've just got to hope that you've shown them enough different pictures throughout the week that they can see what's happening. But I think that analysis is both massively undervalued in that a lot of coaching staff and clubs don't fund it well enough because they don't necessarily see the value. And I say that's still the case now, even though we're for many people we're like well into this kind of data-driven era. And I see a lot of people on Twitter saying that plays too robotic because everything's being analysed, but it's not even remotely the case that we're at that stage.
No.
But it's also too highly rated in that certain people on Twitter think that you can just pick up something the opposition is doing and then target it, and it's just not that simple. Like there's very few things where you're guaranteed to get anything from it. And also, even if you spot a weakness in a line out or the line out defense or whatever, really the best thing that you're hoping for is just a gain line success, which is pretty small fry for when you consider the kind of the efforts that's gone into it.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, but especially because on your whole analysis of the Seattle breakdown, I read the article as well. And from a coaching perspective, what you told there effectively was, first, like you said, first of all, you've got to notice that's what they do. Secondly, you've then got to play that style. Then you've got to acknowledge when they've caught on to the fact you're playing that style, and then you have to have a new game plan for once they start playing against that style. So,
Yeah,
like you said, you've almost have 4 game plans there already, and
exactly.
so it's not a case of going chalk and cheese, rinse, repeat will win the game. It's not a case of going, this guy knows nothing, we will keep doing whatever we've done every week, regardless. Because the opposition have probably looked at you as well.
Exactly. And even if they do the same thing, so I think a good example would be Wales versus Georgia in the World Cup in 2019, where the first two lineouts came off, our first two tries came off lineouts, where Wales attacked the 10 kind of down the channel between the first defender and the back of the lineout, and then popped the ball inside to the winger. And both of them were tries. And I was watching this in the when I was over in Japan for working on for the World Cup website, and I was thinking, okay, that looks like something that they've targeted, because it's an unusual move to run a 10, have a 10 clash with a late wing clash. And so I look back, and Georgia played Scotland the week before. Well, not the week before, but in the last warm-up game. And Georgia had set up with the hooker at the back of the line out as a defensive option. And he hadn't had the speed to be able to cover the cross, but Scotland hadn't attacked that particular area. And when you think about it's like the butterfly wings. So if Scotland had attacked that particular area, Georgia would have realised it was a weakness, and probably would have shored it up for the game. And so then what would have happened? Well, maybe Wales couldn't have attacked that way, but actually maybe it opens up a different attack because you've got a hooker at the back who's so interested in getting out that he's now forgotten his first job. So maybe instead of attacking that seam, you run a fake maul and then peel off and go for that. You can have the hole where the hookers would have been were they not sprinting out to cover the 10. So when you see that, you see the hooker is defending there, you think, yeah, okay, this is on. We're going to run our move where we run on the inside. But even at that point, so many things can happen. So the 10 was running kind of on the inside shoulder of the Georgian 10. But what happens if the Georgian 10 just thinks that the hooker's his inside man and so lets him go through? Or what happens if the hooker actually can get off the line out quick enough and so blocks that option? So you can identify these things and you can see them and you can give your team a head start and give them a push forwards, but it's not guaranteed that there's going to be success at the end of it. But it's also the fact that any two teams playing each other, even Wales versus Georgia, they're not massively mismatched. And if Wales got 2 early red cards, Georgia could have won that game. And if Wales just came out playing absolutely rubbish and Georgia were really good, Georgia could have won that game. So it's about those fine margins, but it is a game where it's very fine margins, and so it makes sense to try and exploit, a 2% improvement.
And on the fine margin, there's a thing, and you'll appreciate this as the cycling background as well. I think it might have been it was either Team Sky's coach or it was Team Britain's coach at the Olympics for the track cycling said, I'm never going to find that one thing that makes us 10 seconds faster, but I will find 10 things that make us 1 second faster. So I might as well spend my time looking for them instead of going for this miracle of. I think he used some extremism, a bit funny. He said something like, well, I'm trying to find the way around the rules to strap rockets to the backs of my cyclists. I'll try and find the other stuff that works.
Exactly, and I think that's the key stuff is that people, and this is what I kind of mean with the it's both overrated and underrated, is that people think that there might be one magic thing where you look at them and go, oh, we unlock this team by doing X, which isn't the case. But they forget that you can go, well, if we do a bit of this, we do a bit of that, we plan in the week for this inevitability, then it can give you that small little advantage. And certainly, I think the biggest advantage is probably with player recruitment, because ultimately, once you've got a player, if he's 28, you're probably not going to be improving him that much. You might be making him a little bit better. You might be stopping him from, decreasing in ability, but realistically, you're not going to be improving him vastly. And so, what you've got to hope is that you pick the right person who fits your style, who works there. And so, I think that's where we underrate the impact of analysis, because that is potentially huge if you're the team and you pick up the right players.
Wow. No, I couldn't agree more. And you've convinced me. If I ever own a rugby team, they'll be going, oh, we need to spend money on this player. I'll be like, scrap that. We're getting four recruitment analysis. And then
hopefully, I mean, it'd be great to get more recruitment analysis in the game.